Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth's defense force frigate Defiant and watched the stars through the main view screen. The ship moved quietly through the darkness of space, near the Kepler system, where human colonies had once thrived. Before the Zephyrian Empire came, the war had been going badly for 3 years now. The aliens had better weapons and faster ships. They conquered human worlds one by one, and nothing seemed to stop them. Jake had seen too many good people die, and too many planets burn under alien fire. Lieutenant Amy Collins worked at the tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she monitored enemy activity. Jake trusted her completely. She had saved their lives many times during previous missions. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, I am detecting multiple Zephyrian ships in this sector. They seem to be moving in formation toward the inner colonies. Jake nodded. This was what they had come to find. Earth Command needed to know where the aliens were going next. The Defiant was one of the few ships fast enough to scout behind enemy lines and gather intelligence. How many ships? Amy, at least 12, sir, including what looks like a heavy cruiser. They are maintaining radio silence, but their engine signatures are clear. Jake walked closer to her station. Show me their projected course. The main screen changed to display a tactical map. Red dots showed the enemy ships moving through space like predators hunting prey. Their path would take them directly toward 3 human colonies that had not yet been evacuated. We need to warn Earth Command immediately, Jake said. Get me a secure channel to headquarters. Amy worked at her controls, but then her face went pale. Captain, I am reading massive energy signatures approaching from multiple vectors. We are surrounded. The view screen exploded with light as Ephorian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. All around the Defiant, Jake counted at least 6 ships, including a massive dreadnought that dwarfed his own vessel. It was a trap. The aliens had been waiting for human scouts to arrive. All hands to battle stations, Jake shouted. Red alert. Prepare for combat. The bridge lights dimmed to combat red as alarms sounded. Throughout the ship, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Jake knew they were outgunned. The Defiant was built for speed and stealth, not fighting capital ships. Enemy dreadnought is powering weapons, Amy reported. Her voice stayed calm despite the danger. Incoming transmission from the lead ship. Put it through. The view screen flickered and showed the interior of an alien bridge. A tall Zephyrian in military uniform stared at Jake with 4 cold eyes. The alien had gray skin and wore dark armor covered in rank insignia. AM War Commander Vex Val of the Zephyrian 3rd Fleet, the alien said in perfect English. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Jake stepped forward, never showing fear. We are on a peaceful scientific mission. We pose no threat to your ship's decks. Val made a sound that might have been laughter. Your ship carries military sensors and weapons. You are spies. Captain Morrison of Earth Defense Force, ship registry 7749. The alien knew his name and ship registration. Jake realized they had been tracked for some time. This was not a random encounter. The Zephyrians had specifically waited for his ship. You have 30 seconds to surrender. War Commander Vex Val continued. Your crew will be treated according to our military codes if you complied. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Amy watched him with trust in her eyes. The other officers waited for his orders. They were good people who had families back on Earth. Captain, Amy said quietly, we cannot outrun them, and we cannot fight them. All Jake knew. She was right, but surrender meant capture and interrogation. The Zephyrians would learn everything about human defenses and future plans. Thousands more people would die. Prepare to download all classified data to the emergency beacon, Jake ordered. Set it for delayed transmission after we are gone. Amy understood immediately. She began transferring tactical information about human fleet movements and defensive positions to a small beacon that could hide in space and broadcast later. 15 seconds. War Commander Vex Val announced. Jake made his decision. All hands abandon ship immediately. Take the escape pods and surrender to the aliens when they pick you up. Cap. No, Amy protested. We will not leave you. That is an order, Lieutenant. Get the crew to safety. I will stay and destroy our computer systems. Amy Looked like she wanted to argue, but military discipline held. She saluted sharply. Yes, sir. The crew began evacuating. As Jake worked frantically at the command console, he wiped memory banks and destroyed sensitive files. The Zephyrians would learn nothing useful from his ship. Expired War Commander Vexval announced energy weapons from the dreadnought struck the Defiant, but they were set to disable, not destroy. The aliens wanted prisoners. Jake launched the data beacon just as Zephyrian soldiers beamed aboard his ship. They wore powered armor and carried energy weapons that could cut through steel. He raised his hands in surrender. The lead soldier removed his helmet, revealing the same gray skin and 4 eyes as the War Commander. You are Captain Morrison. Jake nodded. War Commander. Vexval wishes to speak with you personally. You will come with. Ostay escorted Jake to a transport ship that carried him to the dreadnought. The alien vessel was huge and filled with advanced technology. Jake memorized everything he saw, knowing the information might be useful. Later, War Commander Vexval waited in a luxurious cabin decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. Jake recognized artifacts from human colonies that had fallen. Captain Morrison, the alien, said, you interest me greatly. Your tactical record shows unusual creativity for a human. Said nothing. Your crew has been recovered alive. As promised, they will be sent to labor camps on occupied worlds. But you will come with me to our fortress world of Kar. Jake had heard rumors about Kar-Toon. It was where the Zephyrians sent important prisoners for interrogation and study. Few humans had ever returned. Why am I so special? Jake asked. Because War Commander Vexval replied, you represent something we do not understand about humans. Your species fights when logic says you should surrender. You find ways to win battles you should lose. We wish to study this quality the transport carried. Jake away from the battle site where his ship had been destroyed. His crew was safe, but captured. He was alone and heading toward an alien prison world. But Jake Morrison was not finished fighting. He began planning even as the stars changed outside the view screen. War might be going badly for humanity, but Jake intended to change that. He just needed time and opportunity, the Zephyrians thought. They had captured a simple ship captain. They had actually taken prisoner the man who would become their greatest threat. 6 months had passed since Jake Morrison arrived at the Zephyrian fortress world of Kar-Toon. The prison complex stretched across a barren landscape under twin red suns. Massive walls contained thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species. Jake had learned to survive in this place. The daily routine never changed. Wake at dawn, stand for roll call, work in the manufacturing centers, eat thin soup, return to the cell blocks, sleep when the guards allowed. At the Zephyrians treated prisoners according to their perceived value. Humans were considered moderately intelligent, so they received basic medical care and adequate food. Other species were not so fortunate. Jake had seen creatures starved and worked to death simply because their captors viewed them as animals. Dr. Lisa Park worked beside Jake in the electronics assembly section. She had been captured 8 months ago when the colony of New Athens fell. The Zephyrians valued her scientific knowledge enough to keep her alive and relatively healthy. Lisa was small and quiet, but Jake had noticed her watching everything with sharp eyes. She asked careful questions about their guards and made mental notes about prison routines. Jake suspected she was planning something during lunch break. Lisa sat beside Jake in the cafeteria. The food was tasteless, but nutritious enough to keep workers functional. Around them, other prisoners ate in silence, afraid to attract attention from the guards. Lisa spoke quietly without looking at Jake. I have been studying our captors for months now. Their society operates on strict hierarchical principles. Individual initiative is discouraged at all levels. Jake continued eating but listened carefully. Lisa had a background in xenobiology and understood alien cultures better than most humans. She continued, each Zephyrian knows their exact place in the social order. They follow orders without question because independent thought is seen as dangerous. Their military victories come from overwhelming technological advantage, not tactical flexibility. This matched what Jake had observed. The guards followed the same patrol routes every day. They responded to situations according to predetermined protocols. When something unexpected happened, they always waited for orders from higher-ranking officers. Lisa leaned closer. They fear chaos above all else. Their entire civilization is built on predictability and control. That is why humans puzzle them so much. We adapt and improvise in ways they cannot understand. Jake nodded slowly. What else have you learned? Their command structure has a fatal weakness. Every decision must be approved by the next higher rank field commanders. Cannot change tactics without permission from their superiors. This process can take days for complex situations. Jake realized this information could be incredibly valuable. If they ever escaped, the Zephyrian military might be technologically superior, but they were inflexible in ways that could be exploited. That afternoon, Jake was summoned to meet with War Commander Vex Val, the alien leader had interrogated Jake dozens of times, always asking the same questions about human military capabilities and psychological profiles. The interrogation room was stark and cold. Vex Val sat behind a metal desk while two guards stood at attention. Jake was forced to remain standing during these sessions. Captain Morrison, the war commander, began. Your resistance to our questioning continues to fascinate me. Most prisoners break within weeks. You have maintained your defiance. For 6 months, Jake stared straight ahead and said nothing. He had learned that silence often frustrated his captors more than false information. Tell me, Vex Val continued, why do humans continue fighting when victory is impossible? Your fleets are scattered, your colonies conquered, your homeworld will soon fall. Yet your species refuses to surrender, because surrender means extinction. Jake replied, we fight because the alternative is worse than death. The war commander made notes on an electronic tablet. This response is consistent with previous subjects. Human psychology appears fundamentally different from other species. We have encountered. Jake had given this answer many times before. It was true but incomplete. The real reason humans kept fighting was hope. Hope that somehow they could find a way to win against impossible odds. After the interrogation, Jake returned to his cell block. The human prisoners were housed together in a separate wing. The Zephyrians believed different species should be segregated to prevent cooperation. Jake found Amy Collins waiting by his cell. She had survived the battle and been transported to Khartoum 2 weeks ago. Her presence gave Jake hope that more of his crew might still be alive. Amy looked healthier than most prisoners. The Zephyrians valued her tactical knowledge and gave her extra rations. She worked in their strategic planning department, analyzing human military formation. She said quietly, I have learned important information about the war Earth defense. Force has lost 60% of its fleet. The aliens are preparing a final assault on the Sol system. Jake felt cold despite the warm air. How long do we have? Amy glanced around to make sure. No guards were listening. 6 months, maybe less. They call it Operation World Breaker. The attack will involve their entire reserve fleet and some kind of superweapon. Jake absorbed this information. Earth needed to know about the coming attack, but they were trapped on an alien world with no way to communicate across interstellar distances. Emmy continued, there is more. The weapon they are building can crack planetary surfaces. They plan to break Earth apart if the population does not surrender immediately. Jake clenched his fists. Billions of innocent people would die if Operation Worldbreaker succeeded. Women and children who had never seen a Zephyrian ship would burn in the fires of a destroyed world. That night Jake lay on his narrow bunk and stared at the ceiling. Other prisoners snored or whispered quietly in the darkness. The guards walked their predictable routes outside the cell blocks. Jake began to form a plan. It would be dangerous and probably impossible, but doing nothing meant watching humanity die while he remained safely locked away. Thought about Lisa Park and her knowledge of Zephyrian psychology. Amy Collins knew their current military capabilities. Other prisoners had different skills that might prove useful. Jake Morrison had been a ship captain responsible for the lives of his crew. Now he needed to become something more, He needed to become a leader who could unite prisoners from different backgrounds and species. The Zephyrians had made a mistake bringing so many humans to one location. They thought the prison walls would contain their captives, but walls could not contain human determination and ingenuity. Over the following weeks, Jake began talking quietly with other prisoners. He learned their names and backgrounds. Pete Rodriguez had been an engineer on a colony ship. Karen Walsh was former military intelligence. Dr. Park continued her observations of alien behavior. Jake realized he was not building an escape plan. He was building something much more ambitious. He was creating a resistance network that could strike back at the Zephyrian Empire from within their own territory. The aliens thought they had captured a simple ship captain. They had actually imprisoned the man who would teach them that humans were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. 18 months had passed since Jake Morrison first arrived at Khartoum. The prison complex had become the center of something the Zephyrians never expected, a growing network of resistance that reached far beyond the fortress. Whilst Jake stood in the electronics assembly area, pretending to work while actually coordinating with his network, Pete Rodriguez worked 3 stations away installing circuits and communication devices. The engineer had discovered something remarkable about Zephyr technology. Pete had learned that all alien communication systems used the same basic protocols. Security came from encryption, not from isolated networks. This meant that someone with the right knowledge could access their entire communication grid. Lisa Park continued her observations of alien behavior from the medical wing where she treated injured prisoners. She had made contact with several Zephyrian maintenance workers who belonged to the lowest social caste. These workers were unhappy with the rigid hierarchy that kept them in poverty, while upper castes enjoyed luxury. Lisa had carefully begun planting ideas about fairness and individual rights. The workers listened because humans treated them with respect, unlike their own kind. Karen Walsh worked in the prison administrative section, where she had access to records about other Zephyrian facilities. She had identified 17 labor camps and 3 research stations that held human prisoners. Amy Collins remained in the strategic planning department, where she gathered intelligence about Operation Worldbreaker. The final assault on Earth was still months away, but preparations were accelerating. Jake had transformed from a simple prisoner into the leader of a coordinated resistance network. His people communicated through hand signals and hidden messages. They moved information across the prison complex without the guards ever knowing. The network had grown beyond Khartoum. Jake had made contact with human prisoners on 6 other worlds through maintenance workers who traveled between facilities. These workers carried messages and supplies hidden in equipment shipments. Jake met with his core team in an abandoned storage room during the shift change when guards were distracted. The room contained broken machinery that provided cover for their conversations. Pete Rodriguez spoke first. Captain, I have successfully modified 3 communication terminals in the work areas. We can now monitor Zephyrian military transmissions without being detected. Jake nodded. This was exactly what they needed to gather intelligence about enemy movements and plans. Dr. Park reported next. The maintenance workers have agreed to help us. They are tired of being treated like servants by their own people. Some of them are even willing to risk their lives for a chance at freedom. Karen Walsh had prepared detailed maps of all known Zephyrian prison facilities. We have identified over 2,000 human prisoners across their empire. Most are being held in conditions similar to ours. Simi Collins looked grim. Operation Worldbreaker is scheduled to begin in 4 months. The superweapon testing has been successful. They believe they can destroy Earth in a matter of hours. Jake studied the information his team had gathered. They had built an impressive intelligence network, but intelligence alone would not save Earth. The resistance needed to take direct action. Jake had been thinking about this problem for weeks. The Zephyrians expected prisoners to either submit or attempt individual escapes. What they would never expect was a coordinated uprising across multiple facilities. Over the following weeks, Jake began implementing his plan. The network would stage simultaneous breakouts at 7 different locations. The goal was not just escape, but capture of Zephyrian command ships with their advanced communication arrays. Each facility had a team led by experienced military officers who had been secretly recruited. Jake communicated with them through the maintenance worker network. Every detail was planned and rehearsed. Breakouts would begin with sabotage of power systems and communication. Array's prison guards would be isolated and overwhelmed before they could call for help. Prisoners would then seize control of landing areas where transport ships arrived. Daily Jake knew the plan was extremely dangerous. Most of the prisoners would probably die in the fighting, but doing nothing meant certain death for billions of people on Earth. The Resistance had to try, regardless of the cost. Park approached Jake privately with additional information. Captain, I have learned something important about War Commander Vex Val. He's being considered for promotion to Supreme Admiral of the Zephyrian Fleet. Jake understood immediately. If Vex Val became Supreme Admiral, he would have access to the highest levels of military planning. His capture would provide invaluable intelligence about Zephyrian strategy. Park continued. Vex Val will be visiting Khartoum in 2 weeks to inspect our facility before his promotion ceremony. This gives us an opportunity we may never have again. Jake realized this changed everything. Instead of simply breaking out to steal communication equipment, they could capture one of the most important military leaders in the Zephyrian Empire. That night, Jake called an emergency meeting with his core team. He explained the new situation and what it meant for their plans. The stakes had just become much higher. Pete Rodriguez looked worried. Captain, capturing Vex Val will bring the entire Zephyrian fleet down on us. They will stop at nothing to get him back. Jake nodded. But if we can get him aboard a captured ship, we can use him to access their highest level military communications. Think about what Earth Command could do with that information. May Collins agreed. The intelligence value would be enormous. We could learn about every Zephyrian military operation for months in advance. Park had been thinking about the psychological aspects. Dixval represents everything the Zephyrians value about their civilization. His capture would shake their confidence and prove that humans are far more dangerous than they believed. Walsh spread out maps of the prison complex. We would need to modify our escape routes, and timing everything would have to happen perfectly. Jake looked at each of his team members. These people had become more than fellow prisoners. They were his friends and comrades who shared his determination to fight back against impossible odds. The network began preparing for the most ambitious prison break in galactic history. Jake sent messages to resistance leaders on other worlds, coordinating timing and objectives. Every prisoner knew their role and accepted the risks. Jake thought about his crew aboard the Defiant, who had trusted him to make the right decisions. He thought about the billions of people on Earth who did not even know this battle was being fought for their survival. War Commander Vex Val had captured a ship captain, expecting to break his spirit and learn human secrets. Instead, he had given Jake Morrison the time and resources to build a resistance network that would change the course of the war. The Zephyrians were about to learn that capturing humans was far more dangerous than killing them. 2 years had passed since Jake Morrison became a prisoner of the Zephyrian Empire. The resistance network he had built now stretched across dozens of worlds and included thousands of prisoners from many different species. Jake stood in the communication center that Pete Rodriguez had secretly constructed in an abandoned section of the prison complex. Banks of modified Zephyrian equipment hummed quietly as they intercepted military transmissions from across the Empire. The intelligence they had gathered was staggering. Operation Worldbreaker was scheduled to begin in just 6 weeks. The Zephyrian Reserve Fleet was already moving toward staging areas near the Sol system. Earth had no idea what was coming. Amy Collins worked at a monitoring station translating intercepted messages. Her knowledge of Zephyrian tactical doctrine helped decode their military communications. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. Mee looked up from her station. Captain, the super weapon is called the Planet Cracker. It uses focused gravitational fields to destabilize planetary core. They have successfully tested it on 3 uninhabited worlds. Jake absorbed this information. The weapon was not just powerful, it was specifically designed to make planetary surfaces uninhabitable. Even if some humans survived the initial attack, they would slowly die as their world became a frozen wasteland. Dorlisa Park entered the communication center, carrying data tablets filled with psychological profiles of Zephyrian commanders. She had spent months studying their decision-making patterns and found critical weaknesses. Spoke quietly, Captain. I have identified a flaw in their command structure that we can exploit. During major operations, all strategic decisions must be approved by the Supreme Admiral Council. This creates communication delays of several hours. Jake nodded. This matched what they had observed during smaller operations. The Zephyrians valued centralized control over tactical flexibility. Park continued. If we can disrupt their command communications during the opening phase of Operation Worldbreaker, their field commanders will be paralyzed. They will not know how to respond to unexpected resistance. Karen Walsh had been monitoring prisoner locations across the Empire. The Resistance Network now included cells on 47 different worlds. Many of these prisoners were ready to act. When Jake gave the signal, Karen reported, Captain, we have confirmed that 17 Zephyrian command ships will participate in Operation Worldbreaker. If we can capture just one of them with its communication array intact, we can coordinate with Earth Defense Force in real time. Jake had been planning this moment for months. The simultaneous prison breaks would begin in 3 days. War Commander Thexval was scheduled to arrive tomorrow for his final inspection before being promoted to Supreme Admiral. The plan had grown far beyond a simple escape attempt. Jake intended to capture Thexval and his command ship, then used the vessel to warn Earth about Operation Worldbreaker. But first they had to fight their way out of the most secure prison in the Zephyrian Empire. That evening Jake met with his core team for the final time, as prisoners. Tomorrow night they would either be free or dead. There was no middle ground in what they were attempting. Pete Rodriguez had prepared explosive charges that would disable the prison power grid and communication systems. The blackout would last exactly 17 minutes, giving them time to reach the landing area before backup systems activated. DR Park had recruited 8 Zephyrian maintenance workers who would help during the breakout. These aliens risked execution if they were caught, but they had decided that freedom was worth any price. Amy Collins had identified the exact location where Thexval would be staying during his visit. The war commander always occupied the same luxury quarters when he visited Khartoum. His personal guards followed predictable routines. Karen Walsh had confirmed that resistance cells on 6 other worlds were ready to begin their own breakouts. The coordinated timing was critical to prevent Zephyrian forces from responding effectively. Jake looked at each member of his team, people he had come to trust with his life and the lives of everyone on Earth. Tomorrow we change everything. The Zephyrians think they understand humans, but they have never faced anything like what we are about to do. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Susan Blake stood in the command center of Earth Defense Force headquarters watching displays that showed the disposition of human naval forces. The situation looked hopeless. Blake commanded fewer than 200 ships against a Zephyrian empire that controlled thousands of star systems. Her intelligence reports suggested a major alien offensive was coming, but she had no details about timing or objectives. Admiral Blake had heard rumors about human prisoners captured behind enemy lines, but she had no way to communicate with them. The vast distances between stars made coordination impossible without faster-than-light communication systems. Blake studied tactical projections showing possible Zephyrian attack routes. The aliens could strike at Earth from multiple directions, forcing her to spread her limited forces across dozens of possible approaches. Her staff officers worked frantically to prepare defenses, but everyone knew the odds. They were facing an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority and unlimited resources. The best they could hope for was to make the final battle costly enough to discourage future alien expansion. Back on Khartoum, Jake Morrison prepared for the most important mission of his life. He had transformed from a captured ship captain into the leader of a galactic resistance movement. Tomorrow, he would either deliver the intelligence that could save Earth, or die in the attempt. Jake thought about all the people counting on him, his former crew members scattered across alien prison camps, the billions of innocent civilians on Earth who had no idea their world was about to be attacked, the resistance fighters on dozens of worlds who were ready to sacrifice everything for a chance at freedom. The Zephyrians had made a critical error when they decided to study human prisoners instead of simply executing them. They had given Jake Morrison the time and resources to build a network that could strike back at the heart of their Empire. War Commander Vex Val believed he understood human psychology, but he was about to learn that humans were capable of things no alien mind could anticipate. Jake had spent 2 years planning for this moment, and nothing would stop him from completing his mission tomorrow. The galaxy would discover that taking humans prisoner was far more dangerous than killing them in battle. The breakout began exactly at midnight, when Pete Rodriguez triggered the explosive charges that plunged Cartoon Prison Complex into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, but the main power grid was completely destroyed. Jake Morrison led his team through corridors they had memorized during months of planning. Prison guards stumbled through the darkness, calling for backup that would never come. Their communication systems had been the first target of the sabotage. Dr. Lisa Park guided 8 Zephyrian maintenance workers who had joined the resistance. These aliens carried security codes that opened locked doors and disabled automated defense systems. Their help was crucial to reaching the command. Ariami Collins moved ahead of the group, using her knowledge of the prison layout to avoid guard patrols. The tactical officer had studied every security camera and sensor position during her work. Assignment Skiren Walsh carried data storage devices that contained intelligence about Operation Worldbreaker and Zephyrian military capabilities. This information was too valuable to risk losing in the fighting. The team reached the luxury quarters where War Commander Vex Val was staying. Jake had expected heavy security, but found only 4 guards who were quickly overwhelmed. The Zephyrians had never imagined that prisoners could organize such a coordinated act. Vex Val stood in his quarters wearing a sleeping robe, his 4 eyes wide with shock and disbelief. The alien commander, who had interrogated Jake dozens of times now, faced capture by his former prisoner captain. Morrison, the war commander, said, "How is this possible? You are prisoners, not soldiers." Jake smiled grimly. "You never understood us at all. We are whatever we need to Beatty." Team secured Dex Val and moved toward the landing area, where a Zephyrian command ship waited. The vessel was called Dominion's Edge, and it contained the most advanced communication systems in the alien fleet's other. Prisoners had already overwhelmed the ship guards and taken control of the landing area. Pete Rodriguez worked frantically to activate the ship's systems while Amy Collins studied the navigation controls. Dr. Park kept Vex Val under guard while monitoring reports from resistance cells on other worlds. The coordinated breakouts were succeeding beyond their wildest hopes. Prisoners on 17 different facilities had broken free and captured Zephyrian vessels. Jake realized they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, a simultaneous uprising across multiple star systems that had caught the Zephyrian Empire completely unprepared. Dominion's Edge lifted off from Cartoon as Jake settled into the command chair. The irony was not lost on him. The prisoner had become the captain, while his former captor sat in chains. Jake activated the ship's communication array and began intercepting Zephyrian military transmissions. The aliens were in chaos as reports of prison breaks flooded their command centers. Amy Collins worked at the navigation station. "Captain, I have calculated a course that will take us to the edge of Zephyrian space. We can warn Earth about Operation Worldbreaker. From there." Jake shook his head. "We are not running, Amy. We are going to do something much more important." Jake had realized that simply warning Earth would not be enough. The planet still lacked the military strength to stop Operation Worldbreaker, but if he could disrupt Zephyrian command communications during the battle, he might give Earth a fighting chance, using his knowledge of alien psychology. Jake began sending false reports through the Zephyrian communication network. He posed as a loyal commander reporting that human resistance was interfering with Operation Worldbreaker preparations. The rigid alien command structure worked exactly as Dr. Park had predicted. Field commanders began requesting new orders to deal with the reported human interference. Higher-ranking officers demanded detailed explanations of the problems. Jake manipulated these communications to gather complete intelligence about Operation Worldbreaker battle plans. The Zephyrians revealed their ship positions, attack routes, and tactical objectives, while trying to coordinate their response to the false crisis. Within hours, Jake had assembled a complete picture of the coming assault. The Zephyrian fleet would attack Earth in 3 waves, using the planet cracker weapon to destroy major population centers. If resistance continued, Jake opened a communication channel to Earth's Defense Force headquarters. The message would take several hours to reach the Sol system, but it would arrive just in time to help. Prepare Earth's Defenses, Admiral Blake. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I am transmitting complete intelligence about Operation Worldbreaker, including enemy ship positions and tactical plans. On Earth, Admiral Blake stared at the communication display in shock. Captain Morrison had been listed as killed in action 2 years ago now. He was somehow broadcasting from deep inside enemy territory. Blake studied the intelligence data Jake had transmitted. The information was incredibly detailed, showing fleet movements and attack plans with mathematical precision. Admiral Blake realized this intelligence could change everything. She immediately began repositioning her limited forces to exploit the weaknesses Jake had identified in the enemy formation, continued coordinating with Earth. While the Dominion's edge raced toward the Sol system, he used the ship's advanced sensors to track Zephyrian fleet movements and relay real-time updates to Admiral Blake. The Battle of Sol began when the first wave of Zephyrian ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. Jake had positioned the Dominion's edge where he could monitor the entire engagement. Admiral Blake deployed her forces exactly as Jake had suggested, using the intelligence about enemy tactics to predict and counter every Zephyrian move. The aliens found themselves facing defensive formations they had not anticipated. Jake watched the battle unfold on multiple display screens. Human ships darted between larger alien vessels, using superior maneuverability to avoid direct confrontation. The tactics were working perfectly. When Zephyrian field commanders tried to adapt their strategy, they were paralyzed by their own command structure. Each tactical change required approval from higher authority, but Jake was intercepting and delaying those communications. War Commander Vexval watched the battle displays with growing horror. His carefully planned operation was falling apart as human forces seemed to anticipate every move. How did you know our plans, Vexval? Demanded Jake, turned to face his former captor. You taught me everything I needed to know. Your interrogations revealed how your people think and why you always lose when facing the unexpected. The second wave of Zephyrian ships arrived to find the first wave scattered and confused. Admiral Blake had used the delay to reposition her forces for maximum advantage. Jake coordinated the final phase of the battle by leading the Dominion's edge in a direct assault on the planet cracker weapon. The massive device was protected by dozens of escort ships, but Jake knew their exact positions and capabilities. The planet cracker exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up half the solar system. Its destruction marked the end of Operation Worldbreaker and the beginning of Zephyrian defeat. Across the galaxy, other resistance cells were using captured ships to attack Zephyrian supply lines and communication centers. The prison breaks had evolved into a full-scale rebellion that the aliens could not control. Or Commander Vexval stared at the tactical displays, showing his fleet's destruction. Everything we built, everything we conquered, it is all falling apart. Jake nodded. The Zephyrian Empire had made a fatal error when they decided to take human prisoners instead of killing them in battle. They had given their enemies the time and opportunity to learn their weaknesses. Within days, the Zephyrian government contacted Earth, requesting peace negotiations. The proud empire that had conquered dozens of species was asking for mercy from the humans they had once considered inferior. Jake Morrison returned to Earth as the hero who had saved humanity from extinction, but more importantly, he had proven that human adaptability and determination could overcome any technological advantage. The galaxy learned that capturing humans was far more dangerous than fighting them in open battle.